Ruins tell stories, not just of what was built, but of what time chose to take back. And if you want your tabletop terrain to feel alive, believable, and full of history, then you need to understand how structure falls apart. In this video, I'm going to walk you through how I approach ruining stone structures across 4 stages. Now to start construction, we're going to take a nice piece of scrap foam with a flat edge and begin cutting it. Make sure you wear a mask because you don't want your foam cutting to feel like this. But in all seriousness, you really should be doing this in a well-ventilated space with some respiratory protection. These will release some toxic fumes that you do not want to breathe. Now for those who are curious about the size of the bricks, I've set the wire cutter to about 3 millimeters away from that wire there. And we're just going to run those into thin strips, and then the actual length of the brick is about 1 centimeter. From there, I'll just throw those into a coffee can with some rocks and shake them up to get them that nice rough texture. Now anytime you're working with these bricks, you need to plan ahead, and for that we're going to make sure that we just have enough room for those bricks to sit flush against the wall, but also have enough room that these posts will stick out from there. To get these posts the stone texture, I'm just going to roll a ball of aluminum foil over the tops of those to rough them up, and that'll put a nice uneven texture into them to make them look much more weathered. When you're working at this scale, you really don't want to have super smooth stone because it's not going to grab any of your texture or painting from in later stages. So even if it is a newer build, you want to make sure that it still has a nice rough texture, otherwise your paint's not going to translate onto that. Now to actually get the weathered look onto these posts, we're going to start by just tearing around the tops of these posts and ripping it off, carving in little chunks and just picking out little pieces. I also put cracks and all kinds of different texture and effects into this, just really make it look like it's been crumbling over years of use and weather and everything else that could have happened to it. From there, you're going to take some more aluminum foil and just go back into those divots just to take away the foam texture and just get that nice uneven stony look that the rest of the post already has. Now if you need any of the tools or resources that you see me using here, be sure to check the links down below and you can get the products that I would recommend to do this type of work with. But this is how we're going to get our nice weathered stone looks that are crumbling into ruins here. Now before we place bricks, we're going to want to trim down all that hot glue and then take some Mod Podge and just heavily apply it to each layer that we're going to do here. I've noticed that it's easiest to work with bricks, especially this size, if you use as much glue as you can without it puddling. You want it thick enough that it can really set in there, but not so thick that it globs up and gets in your way, and not so thin that the bricks don't really apply. And then after you do that, you're going to want to take a nice thin layer of Mod Podge over the surface of that and spread it out nice and even as you go. Now that's just going to help hold those in place as they dry and you get further into this build, as the whole wall could want to shift and move as you place these bricks. Now for the actual ruin sections, we're just going to kind of overlap those over the underlying piece of foam there that we're using as a support. And this will just give us a nice uneven pattern, but also it'll give us some space that we can place our rocky mixture here soon for that mortar infill layer. There's not really a right or wrong way to do this, just kind of whatever looks right to you and feels right. If you want them overlapping or anything, or falling into it or falling off of it, now is the time to put those in place. Now to save me a couple more hours of laying bricks, I'm going to use this little magic trick to finish up the other side of the walls. So now that both sides of these walls are done, we can go ahead and seal those. So I'm going to just take some of the black Mod Podge to go ahead and get a nice dark layer over the top of these and a nice heavy coat. Now once that's done, we're going to go ahead and just put on our capstones for these first couple walls. For the weathered section, I'm going to carve a couple of chips and cracks into these to just really further push that ruin look into them. Now this is another step that you can really take as far as you want if you really want to push that ruin look into these. Now for a technique that I really like to do to fill in all of the gravel little bits in between the 2 layers of wall and around the ground, we're just going to take some small pebbles, some glue, and some sand, and we're going to make that into a nice paste. I went a little heavier with the rock pieces so they can kind of infer that it's made up out of not just rock, but also chipped up bricks and any other kind of debris that would sit there. From there, we're just going to kind of brush that into between the 2 wall pieces on the sections that are ruined and anywhere that those rock pieces and walls would have collapsed and fallen down. Because whenever you're doing a build like this, you really want to think about the story behind it and how these pieces and ruins and whatever it is your build is, how it got to that stage and the type of history and people and events that would have gotten it there. So whether it's pristine or starting to fall apart, if it had been hit by lightning or caught on fire or besieged in battle, what kind of damage and ruin would that have caused to it and what would the effects look like? So rather from crumbling ruins to scorched walls, that's the kind of details you want to look for. Now on to the painting. Typically I would, now that it's been Mod Podged, I would just take some spray paint and go ahead and coat these up. But since it's a small project, I'm going to go ahead and just use some black craft paint. You can use either one just fine. If you do use a spray paint, make sure you have a nice good layer of Mod Podge. Otherwise you are going to risk melting the foam and destroying your work, which you do not want. With this acrylic craft paint, that's not an issue. That's just what I chose to go with this time. So for the actual paint job, we're going to do our standard method across all of these 4 walls. Now how I've approached this particular project is that this is actually the same wall section that I'm working with, and it's just over the course of hundreds of years that this damage has happened to this wall section, and each demonstrated at a different stage of that. Now for the paint job itself, you can see that we're just sponging on the yellow and red as we typically do with all of our stonework, just to really get those nice underlying values in the stone that'll be underneath all of our grays. You can use different colors. I just tend to prefer using the red and yellow for this. I find that it looks the best personally. Now onto our base layer of our grays. We're going to start with just some of the black, nutmeg, and white. And we're going to mix those into kind of a nice and darker tone that we can start dry brushing and then build up to lighter colors over the top of that. So I'm going to wipe off most of that paint onto a paintbrush and then just lightly with the edge of my brush apply that paint over the entire surface. You're going to cover up most of that red and yellow, but enough of it's going to shine through that you're going to still be able to see those nice core colors underneath. Now to finish it off, we're just going to take some white and we're just going to very lightly go over the very tops of that just to really pull out that last little bit of texture and really drive up that contrast. Now I do like to go pretty light with my white after I've done this because once I go back through with the washes here, I know that's going to darken it all back up. And for the wash itself, we're just going to take some nutmeg and black and mix that up really fine. And you want to really make sure that there's no chunks of paint floating around in there. Otherwise, you're going to get streaks on your walls from those clumps. Now from there, we're just going to apply that pretty heavily over the entire surface. You want to make sure you're not doing lots of passes with the brush so that it's more flowing and you're not risking wiping off any of that paint underneath it. So just multiple heavy passes to fill it in. Now to quickly dry, you can use a hair dryer, but either use the cold setting or give yourself enough space that you're not going to risk melting any of that paint. For the more weathered sections, we're going to take just more of that wash and do a few more coats over it just to really grime them up and make them even dirtier and dirtier. I think in the end I ended up doing 3 coats on each of these, but you can really push that as far as you'd like to. I find 2 to 3 really gets you a nice weathered look. Now this is another technique that I really love to do to really push that weathering effect, and that's just take more of that wash loaded up and just let that run down where it will, anywhere that water is going to naturally pool and run down your surfaces. Now once I was done, I wasn't a huge fan of how that rubble looked all the same color, so I decided I was going to go ahead and paint that a different color. And to do that, I'm just going to take some nutmeg brown and a little splash of water to make really a heavy wash, just to tone that back up and warm it up, and it'll add a bit more contrast, but also kind of a nice dusty, dirty layer to it and help break up all the different sections of this build. In hindsight, I would have done this earlier in the project, but it just goes to show that you're always going to be learning more, and if you don't like something, you can always repaint it and try again. Now, to do the bases, I'm not doing anything special with these, as this is just an example, but we're just going to go ahead and take some of the burnt umber and put that all across the ground. Now to wrap up this project and to really push that extra level of detail, we're going to go ahead and just glue on some of this flocking that we got from Hobby Lobby. This is a kind of a green and then a yellowish green mixture that we're just going to apply pretty heavily to these and make some different techniques with them. So for the pristine wall, we're just going to make it a nice grass layer, and we're not going to have any moss growing on that just yet. Now we're going to save off everything that falls down, and we're going to mix that with some glue to get a nice paste for the next section wall. Now for this next section of wall, this is going to be our first one that really shows any kind of real damage, but you can still see some of the original structure there below. So for that, we're not going to do any major pieces of moss, just where water will pool naturally, where it'll sit, and it's going to be small little patches spread out across the entire thing. Now as we do each of these sections, it's going to be a little bit different as we're going to approach it a little differently. So for this next section where the entire thing is ruined and none of the original structure remains to its former height, we're going to add a little bit of yellow to it just to try to add a little bit more age and weathering look to it. Now how we apply this section, we're also going to do it in heavier batches, and we're going to let it drape over the edges. This will help to sell the look that it's really overgrowing with the moss and not just small patches of popped up here and there. The moss is one of my favorite steps, and you can really take this as far as you want, and I don't really know if there's a wrong way to do it. I've noticed that if you stipple it and kind of smear and wipe it, it's going to apply the easiest, but there's a lot of good ways to do it. Now for this last section where it's really just rumbles and crumble down to just its bare ruins, I would say this stage is more like the last stage before it's completely unrecognizable from just random rock and debris. Now we're going to make that the heaviest layer that's really overgrown the largest sections. I could have pushed this a little bit further, but I didn't want to cover up too much of that underlying detail to really show that wall there. Now we're going to go back one step for this bottom layer because we're going to take some of the leftover yellow and green and we're just going to sprinkle that over as a kind of a middle ground for that grass layer. And then with that, all of our walls are complete. Now the way I categorize these is going to be obviously first we have the pristine walls, that is all the original structure as it was built. The next stage is going to be still mostly the original structure, however some wear and tear has begun to fall on this and it's begun to crumble, but some of that original structure is still there. I really like this stage. This one and the next are probably my go-to stages to use for this because you can still see a lot of the detail there. Now for this third stage is going to be, you can still tell what the structure originally was, however it is not to its former glory as none of the original height of that build is still there. And for the final stage, this is going to be all of just rubble, worn down as much as it can be without being completely unrecognizable from just the ground itself. Now if you want to see how I use this technique in action, check out this monastery build right here, where I use these two stages in between there to get the entire structure done and have a playable game surface. Until next time, thanks for watching.